Hi everyone. Just to follow up on my previous video that I did earlier today, I've gotten a couple of responses from you guys already, which is good. However, one of the guys who emailed me mentioned something about reading in IT, and he said to me, "But do I have to read a lot in IT? Like, I'm watching your videos, I'm finding them insightful, but." What do I really have to read a lot in order to succeed in IT? And the answer to you, mate, is definitely. It's not going to be enough for you to succeed in this industry if you're not reading any material. It's just the way that this industry runs. There is just so much information that you need to know in order to complete your daily task. And everybody's task is different. I mean, at the moment where I'm working at this place, CrownBet, they're working with an admin system, or that's the part of the section I'm working on, and it calls a bunch of APIs. And if you don't know what an API is, or you don't know how to talk to an API, you don't understand the concept of REST, you don't understand the concept of making calls to an API, what JSON is, all these different formats that you need to understand in order to communicate between yourself and APIs. You can't even do anything, so how do you go about learning all this stuff? Well, sure, you can spend a very long time on a daily basis just sitting on YouTube and watching videos about this stuff. Like, you even right now, you could go to YouTube and you could type in, web APIs, and there'll be a video about it for sure. Like, what is a web API? The first one, or using REST APIs in a web application. This is a PHP tutorial. You can look at ASP.NET, and that's a 5-hour video all based on web APIs, right? And that's great. You can learn that way. There's even a video here where you can learn how to create your first web API, which is like a 4-minute video. The thing is, though, is that these videos will cover only so much. Do they cover, if you look to my right here, do they cover things to do with hosting an API in a cloud? I don't see that here. I see web APIs as mobile apps. I guess that's partly, a video about cloud, right? But most of these are like AngularJS is a frame technology. We're talking about, we've got building HTTP services, we're using web API, and there's all these different videos, and they all seem to be very similar by nature. But none of them say, here's how to host them in the cloud. Now, you could go web APIs in the cloud, right? And sure, you might get some other videos, right? But they're not going to necessarily be the technology you're using, the cloud infrastructure you're using. At the end of the day, you're given a problem domain, and you need to understand that problem domain fairly quickly. And I think that videos, as much as they're slower and they can make you comprehend faster, or for some people anyway, reading is the fastest way to learn. You can learn very quickly, if you read the right material. And you don't have to read it all either. Like, most of the time you just read little bits and pieces. A video will be very much about, they'll take their time, explain it, they go slowly, they have slides, and sometimes you just don't have time for that, So you have to read. This is the way it is. And then on top of that, there are problems in your normal role where a video won't cover it. Like, you could run into something wrong with your framework that you're using, a bug. Could be a bug in the framework, You're not going to find a video about that. You might be the first to find it. You might be the first that's used the framework that's tried to use it a specific way, either right or wrong. I don't know at this stage. And you find an issue and you go and you Google it on the web and you find nothing, and you come to YouTube, you're looking for a video on it. There's no videos. Right? There's nobody out there that's done a video about this problem. Why? Because you're the first to find it. Right? So what do you do about these things? Well, first you have to research, manually, is there an answer to this problem? Right? So something like you could go to a site which I mentioned in the previous video, Stack Overflow. Right? Stack Overflow has problems to lots of things. You can come down and go, okay, maybe your issue is there any ASP.NET frameworks that other than web forms or MVC? Maybe you're looking for a third alternative. And then somebody will say, no, there's no answer to it. Okay, that's not the right answer. You have to go through and do more searching and more checking. Right? And this is part of a normal IT job, is to have a problem and search for a solution on it. And if there is no solution for it, then it's up to you as a developer to find out what is working around that problem in order to get your hands inside where that code's running and solve it. Now, sometimes it could come down to the fact that you have to understand the code that is being executed in a particular pipeline, like MVC, right? MVC, for example, you might need to understand the pipeline in MVC in order to understand where it's failing or where it could be failing and why. Or if you're using a JavaScript framework like Angular JS or something and you're getting an error and you start following or start tracking where the code could go wrong because you understand that framework enough to understand where to start looking for the potential break, because the potential break may not always be obvious. And these are things you're just not going to pick up in a video. You might pick them up reading a little bit, right? And I'm telling you now, there's much more material when you read than what there is when you watch. It's like a real life novel, We have a book and then you have the movie. The book is much more comprehensive in feeling and smells and all these other kinds of ideas and concepts than a movie, which will just be more like bang, bang, he's dead, cry, or laugh, whatever. If it's the Titanic and you're like me and Leonardo DiCaprio sinks in the water, you laughed at it, the girls cried, that kind of thing. But with IT, you can't really do that. You have to understand, well, why is he sinking? What's making him pull him under? Well, he's just dead, Why did he die? Well, he had hypothermia. Why? Because he's cold. Why? Because he's in the water. So everything becomes why? Why is he in that position that he's in? Because he's an idiot. I mean, it's just and he wouldn't get on the damn piece of wood when he probably had space to sit there. That's the point. Development is about why. Why is this happening? How can we improve it? And you've got to dig deep down to comprehend what could be causing issues. You can't do that just with videos. Okay, in my history and background, there is no way whatsoever that you can get around this by just looking at videos. And not only that, there are other things out there that videos just won't cover. Like, for example, if you want to know what can go wrong in a cloud environment, I'm sure there might be a video on it. Like, we could say, cloud AWS issues. We have adoption issue strategies in AWS cloud. Again, it's 51 minutes long, and you may not have time to sit there and watch a 51-minute video. And even then, if you watch it, it may not be what you need. The time that it takes for you to realise that, you've wasted 50 minutes of your day. Whereas if you can come in and say, well, there's a bunch of AWS design patterns that are out there that address certain issues, and this is just from understanding that you are going to have problem domains out in the cloud. Well, look at all these patterns. And it's all listed here. It's just a bunch of hyperlinks. Right? And you go, okay, well, what's a scale up pattern? Right? And scale up pattern essentially is, well, beef up your server. So start off with something small, and if you haven't got as much traffic, make it smaller. If you've got more traffic, make it bigger. And so beef up your server to handle more traffic. So you got more power. And that's kind of what a scale up pattern is. Or there's also a scale out pattern, which is basically replicating the number of servers. So whenever you run into a situation where, things are getting a little bit too high in the CPU or too high in the request count, well, you auto scale. This concept of auto scale. So instead of just having one version of your web API or your website or whatever, you span it out to multiple instances of it. So therefore you can handle more people connecting to it. And these are things that, you could have watched this video and they may have just briefly talked about it for 2 minutes. And just in well, I don't know how long I've been talking, maybe less than a minute. I've already explained 2 concepts that, you would have to look for in this 51-minute video. And then there's see how much faster it is to read. Now, keeping in mind, I did skip through what all this said, and that's because I already know what it's going to tell me. Okay, I know what it's scaling up and scaling out is in terms of cloud. I've, as I said, I've worked with cloud technologies over the last few years. I know what they are, but even some of these things, I don't know what half of these things are because I don't have to work in these areas a lot. But one day I might, and there might be a situation where I have to rewrite URLs because, there's an old legacy application that's out there where people have old links to a website, but we've got a new rewriting or we've got a new style or a new URL for that particular page. And then I might have to come in and understand what the URL rewriting pattern is. And basically how this is monitored. And I don't know what this is today. And I mean, I may not need to know it for God knows how long, but the reality is that I may need it one day, and the easiest way to read it is to know it's there is to read it, Cache proxy pattern, setting up an overlap of caches for your web application so they can hit one or the other. These are things that I've used in the past. So this is like a distributed cache, and any web API can, or any cache can supply any web API. So it's called basically cache clustering, and I don't want to get too much into it, but the idea is that if I don't look this stuff up really quickly, then I have to wait 51 minutes for an answer I may never get. Or even if you find a video that has the title that matches exactly like something like URL rewriting pattern. So if I go URL rewriting pattern, right, I'm sure there might be something there, right? But see this, look, JSP, web application. Now, what's a JSP web application? I know it's a Java servlet, application, but that's only because I've been doing IT long enough. But if you come here, this is not exactly clear what it is. And in fact, if you look, there is actually nothing that's talking about the same pattern that I've got here. Now, if I look up AWS URL rewrite pattern, right, it gives me that same video again. It's 54 minutes long this time. So it's actually a different video, but it's, see how it's kind of like, and then you got to go through the architectural and design patterns. And this is from 2 years ago. Now, these might be relevant, still today, I don't know, but, and that's the other thing too. These videos can end up being very, very old. These pages are relatively kept up to date. So even if something changes on the URL rewriting pattern, it's still going to be valid for 2016. Whereas this video is not going to necessarily be valid for 2016. And that's the reality of reading. And so if you're not willing to sit there and read, you've got yourself a big problem. Alright, because reading still is going to be the more accurate and the more valid of the two, as videos can get stale very quickly. So I hope that answers the question the guy asked about whether you have to read or not. The answer is yes, definitely. If you don't, you're in the wrong industry. That's it from me. I hope that's helped him and whoever else who's interested in knowing that fact, which is yes, definitely. Always read. And I'm going to tell you right now, and here, actually, before I finish this video, there's one other thing I want to explain too. And it's something that's always bugged me, and it's something a lot of developers do, and it drives me up the absolute wall, right? This site, Stack Overflow, right? This site gives you solutions to problems, okay? So it does require you to read and still understand what the answer to the problem is, right? But what you see a lot of developers do, they'll go something like trim function JavaScript, right? So they'll come in here, they'll type this. We'll look at this one, it's got 15 votes. Apply trim function to each string in an array, right? So they click in here. They go, okay, we've got an array. Yeah, I want to trim out the sides of these things. Yeah, I want that kind of output. So here's the question. How do I do this? My first trial was to try that. So he's indicating what he's tried already. And then he's tried this, and that still doesn't work. Trim.apply, right? So he goes, it works, what's the difference? In fact, he's saying here that he actually did this and it worked. Right? So he's asking, well, why? Why does that work? And to be honest with you, I went through this before and I went, geez, this is not really easy to understand, you know? Now, this could have been, if the guy didn't solve the problem himself, and he's saying, how do I solve this problem? And the guy came and said, oh, do this, right? And didn't explain why. Because sometimes a lot of people will say, copy this code and it will work, right? Without fully understanding, or without us having the ability to understand what that means, okay? But a lot of devs will come in here, they'll read this, they'll think, oh yeah, this is reading, right? Reading, copy, paste, right? They'll paste the code into whatever situation that they're pasting it into, and they go, I fixed it, right? Which, you know, they could have done this, it may never break, okay? They get away with it. And this happens sometimes. I see code, and they get away with it, and I go, but do you and I always ask the question, but do you understand what you just put there? And they'll go, well, it came from Stack Overflow, so it has to be valid. And I go, no, it doesn't always have to be valid for the problem you're dealing with. And they go, do you understand the problem domain that you have? And do you understand why that solution helps you with that problem domain? And when they both say, when they say, well, let's know the second one, I go, take it back, pull it down, don't put it into, you can tell me what it does. And once they can tell me what it does, they can put it back in. Because the reality is, you should always know what you're putting into any code base by reading. And if you don't understand what the answer to a particular question is, like this one, then go and read up on what all this means. What is a function.prototype.call? What is a string.prototype.trim? Why is there a call.call passing in trim? What's x of 0? You know, these are things that you just look at. Like, to be honest with you, I get this because I know JavaScript. But from somebody in the outside world who doesn't know JavaScript as well as I do, they'll look at this and go, what the hell is this? Oh, would it work? Copy paste. And I remember there's definitely one guy that did this. It was back in 2012, and he was kind of he was a junior programmer at the time. He must have just come out of university, and junior programmers can be the worst for not wanting to learn anything, right? They just want to get the information off you and apply it and then be done with it, right? They don't want to read. And so this is what this kid was, you know. When I say kid, he was 21. You know, he wasn't really a kid, you know. But at the time, I was 30, so to me, I saw him as a kid. But he would come to me every day. He'd go, Daryl, I'm stuck. I don't know how to solve this problem. And I go, okay, what's the problem? And he would sit there and go, this, and this. And I go, okay, cool. Mate, have you had a quick search on Google? And he'd go, yeah, I had a search on Google and I didn't find much. And I'd be like, okay, so did you check more than one page of results? He'd go, no, I didn't see it on the first page. I go, try second page. And then you'd find the answer on the second page, right? So that's another thing too. A lot of people won't go past the first page on Google. Yeah, they go, especially because you got to understand that at the end of the day, Google's just a keyword matching system. So if you don't type the right question in it as well, you may not necessarily get the right answer on the first page. So you got to be a little bit forgiving when you ask a question of Google. Sometimes how you word it is, well, you don't get the maximum or the result that you need on the first page if you didn't write it properly. And if you do write it properly, sometimes people don't write their answers properly. So therefore, the answer you want is not on the right page. So anyway, off of that. So he found it on the second page. And I go, okay, cool. And so what'd you find? And you go, I found this code snippet, so, and it'd be something like this. And I go, cool, all right. And I read it, and I would sit there and go, yeah, okay, yeah, that's going to work. And you go, cool, I'm just going to put this in. And I go, okay, but 1 minute. And I go, come back over to my desk. And so I have the code up in front of me. And I'd say to him, all right, so this is the code you're going to add to the source, right? And he goes, yeah. And I'd say, but do you know what it does? And he go, well, it's from Stack Overflow. It does what it says it does. I go, but what does that line of code say? What does it mean? And he goes, I don't know. And I go, but shouldn't you know? And he goes, well, probably should, but I don't. And I go, well, I don't think you should be putting any code in if you don't understand it. He goes, but you understand it? And I go, yeah, I do understand it. And he goes, well, will it work? I said, yeah, of course it will work. I know what it's doing. And he'd say, well, isn't that enough? I said, no, it's not. And I go, it's not about whether something is enough, or whether it will work. Of course it's going to work. That guy is a smart enough guy to know that that's an answer for this particular problem, right? And that's the standard, right? You look at answers to problems, and generally the guys who write them get ticks and high votes. They know what they're talking about in Stack Overflow. But the reality is, for you to be a better programmer, you have to understand what they wrote and why they wrote it. And even if that means you don't understand the question or understand their answer, right? Ask them, what does this mean? I don't get this part of the code. Because some people will write the answer, right? And they'll just write it like I've got highlighted here, right? It doesn't really indicate how that stuff works. He just says, just do this and it will work, right? So it's not, and he goes, what happens here is blah. And then it's kind of like, but I don't get that, And so if you don't get that, how can you learn from that? How can you, when you run into this problem again, are you going to run to the same guy and say, oh, what was that snippet that you sent me? Because he's going to say, oh, excuse me, I moved on. This is Stack Overflow from 4 years ago, So it's more, you've got to understand the problem and the answer, because at the end of the day, right, you want to be faster at writing code. If you're not going to get faster if you don't understand what you're writing, all right? Because you're going to continue to run in the same problem. You go, oh, how do I solve that again? Where was that snippet? And unless you're a person who is highly organized with code snippets, and there are people out there that are, and yes, they can be very, very helpful, have code snippets, but unless you're a person that's highly capable of handling code snippets and organizing them, you're not going to remember this code. You're not going to have it lying around, unless you go looking at an old code base. But that's slow. Like, wouldn't you prefer just to remember it because you know what it's doing, and you can just use it and it's straight off your head, rather than, like, at the end of the day, what's in your head is always going to be faster than what you research. So when you research, you might as well understand it the first time. And it was very hard to explain to that guy this, and he ended up asking for a reference about 2 months after I finished working there, to which I could not agree to it. I couldn't agree to a reference because the guy was a copy and paste job man, and he didn't understand a one line of code half the time that he wrote. And you just can't do that in IT. You've got to continue to research, and you have to reason with logic, and you have to reason with even the structure of code and how it's written, because you just should. It's you owe it to people who spend the time writing the answer for you to understand it, so they have to keep repeating themselves. So that's the way of the world. Anyway, that's kind of off topic a little bit, but the idea is that yes, you definitely should be reading and not just relying on videos. Okay, that's it from me. I'm going to switch off now. It's now 11:30 at night. I'm getting tired. I want to go to bed. I've got to get up for work in the morning. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.